Alrighty. Some of you may not fully understand the whole Honkler situation, the series of Honkler videos that I've been making. Now, I'm not going to explain the red pill, the black pill, the clown pill, Kekistan, Honkler, and what a doomer, a zoomer, and a boomer is. Those of you who know a bit about memes and all that sort of shit will probably know all that. Essentially speaking, Honkler comes from clown world, the world in which we now live in, the world where the Notre Dame fire is still burning, but they've already proclaimed they're not going to investigate the cause of it. The world where you can turn on American TV and, or well, maybe not American TV, but there's videos out there of people getting their children, 6, 7, 8 years old, to dress up as drag queens and go down the catwalk. Children who, well, you know, little boys who are turned into little girls and stuff like that. You know, while they're still kids. A lot of this circus of moral decay and rot, similar to the collapse of the Roman Empire, are playing out. And double standards in the extreme, political censorship. Now, while those of us here in Australia aren't badly affected by this sort of stuff, you know, there's other areas of the world that are, particularly England, mainland Europe, like continental Europe, and parts of the United States. In fact, it is illegal in 7 different states to misgender a guy with a wig and a dress who decides that they're going to live as a woman. Whether they're on hormones or not, doesn't matter. In fact, apparently in the state of New York, or it might be New Jersey, one of the two there, you can be fined up to $250,000 for saying the wrong gender. Calling it's ma'am, a he, a she, or a she, a he, you know. And you got to call them what they want. Otherwise, it's all. You can basically lose your fucking house over it. You know, it's stuff doesn't make sense anymore. Now, while I don't know them greatly well, I know one or two. My parents do know people who have faced political persecution for being a minority group. And it worked real well. And they ended up in refugee camps. One of them has scars on the back of their neck from a mortar blasting shrapnel into the back of their neck. They're fucking lucky they lived. I have also worked with a few Turks who, some of them wouldn't really go into their story, but by fuck, they had some scars on them in places that just, like around their neck and stuff like that, and you didn't really want to ask questions. I realise now that while there's smear campaigns on political candidates on YouTube as blatant, outright, belligerent fucking lies, in which I've seen, you know, one case you may know of, the Wiltshire police handed over his personal cell phone number to journalists, you know, who then turn around and claim all sorts of fake bullshit. You know, everything's a fucking hate crime these days. And we're really running down the line to 1930s Berlin, to the days of Stalin, to days where wrong think will get you in trouble. You've got to stick to this progressive, hard left line of thought, or you become persecuted. You become persecuted for saying a truth. If you say things as they are, if you call the sky blue, there's people that are, you can be fucking crushed with it. And at the rate we're going, it's probably going to get a little bit worse, maybe for another 5 years or more, until it starts to get better. Now, in this, I know that there may be people facing political persecution as a result of this. Let me tell you something about political persecution. It's all bullshit, and it all doesn't matter, and it's all never going to happen to you until it fucking happens to you. And then it's all, oh, I'm attacked. And a lot of these dickheads, oh, I was attacked, I was wronged as an individual. No, there's a whole cluster of people who have been attacked. But it didn't matter to you because it didn't affect you until the day that it actually did happen to you. And then they squeal like a pig. I'm being persecuted as an individual. No, you've been attacked like all the others. Like all the fucking hundreds of others before you. And you never wanted to recognise it because it didn't affect you personally today. And guess what? On the day it does, you'll have nobody, no network, no reference point, and no direction in where you're going to get the fuck out of there. And to save your skin, whatever way you can. The way things go these days, you wouldn't want to have any fucking assets because you can be fined for so many different stupid fucking hate crimes and bullshit. You know, you look at some of these people, like the person you may know who I'm talking about, running as UKIP candidate in the Southwest. All they wanted to do 2 years ago was just play video games, and they thought that statements by a particular feminist, quote unquote, sucked. You look at the man with that little dog who done a joke to his girlfriend who's soon going to be his wife, with a little pug. Mate, your dog's a Nazi. The smear campaigns of that guy, also a UKIP candidate, none of these guys, 3 years, I'm not talking 10 years ago, I'm talking fucking 3 years ago, none of them gave a fuck about politics, and now they're being torn fucking limb for limb on the mainstream media. This is the thing. They grab hold of people who never gave a shit about politics, and it makes them give a fuck about it. Politics is never an issue if your life's cruisy. What if you're one of these ones dragged in, whose life is turned upside down in the space of a couple months with a fucking 5-minute video that was a joke, you know. It's incredible how things can go. And the more they cut up people who had no bad intentions, who weren't Nazis, who weren't at the worst it's going to fucking get. But what are you going to do once you're persecuted? We'll take it from a guy who's been living off-grid. That there, that's running off solar power. I'll take you over to the little... Tell to your fridge. Yeah, I've even got an individual switch for it there. That little light you can see there, that's the low battery disconnect. So the fridge doesn't destroy the battery if it's a cloudy day. And that's one solar system there. Yeah, that little frame's holding solar panels. That's the battery and charge controller underneath. There's a second battery in the box on the right. And there's the one running the fridge. You know, I've lived off grid since the middle of 2011. In fact, it is coming close to 8 years. Having said that, I've been sort of politically aware since I was basically in my teens, and I know a few things about a few things. I'm not an expert, I'm no military expert at all, but I know enough that what knowledge I do have could help you if you become persecuted. How to sort of disappear as a ghost. How to, you know, every single bit of internet that comes out of things comes out of, well, that thing there. You know, nobody can really dox me. Because it runs through a big server in the capital. And I think they must build new servers on occasion, because I've seen at least, well, now this third different suburb that I'm apparently coming from in the capital. So there's ways and means that you can sort of disappear and live independent of the system if you don't depend on the system. Now, I don't have great stashes of food. I mean, there's a fair, you know, there's a bit of rice there and shit. I used to have fucking mountains of supplies. But in all seriousness, with a day's worth of stocking up stuff, I could live here for 6 months without needing contact with the outside world. And I'm quite willing to give advice and help. I'm not going to answer comments, but, you know, I'm going to relay what information I know to help those of you who may be looking down the barrel at one of the 7 states which has laws which can give you serious fines and serious troubles in your life purely by calling a man with a wig on a he. And those of you who need to disappear at some point will be thankful for what information that you have gleaned. Those of you who may not even face political persecution but may be having trouble, as an auntie of mine did many years ago, escaping an ex-boyfriend who made her life absolutely hell. And whether you're in that position, or you're in the position of political persecution, or you're in the position of even trying to escape a cult, and cults are incredibly good, or trying to escape Scientology or whatever, you may want to just disappear. I'm not going to question your motives, but I know there's a lot of motives that people have, and the ones I was more thinking of were to do with political persecution. But hey, if you've got to escape an ex, bingo. If you've got to escape a cult, bingo. If you've got to escape a very powerful family, bingo. My parents also knew someone from a very wealthy family who owned a supermarket chain in the United Kingdom, and he wanted to disappear, and he come to Australia, and he was disappearing from the rest of them. He just didn't want to have anything to do with it all anymore. The expectations, the squabbles over the millions of dollars, he wanted to separate. And he lived very frugally, and he was basically untrackable. In fact, he didn't even have an actual set address for himself, because he lived on a clapped out, near collapsed, and it was fucking nearly collapsed. I can vaguely remember it as a kid. Farmhouse that was a second house, or maybe even a third house on an existing farm. Yeah. So there's ways and means, and I can probably give you a fair bit of advice based on my experience as to how to sort of disappear from society as it suits you, return only as you need to or only as you wish to avoid political persecution or any number of other bullshit. So that's really what these line of videos are about. It's not about, well, I've committed a grave crime, because you see, there isn't any fucking grave crimes. Half the fucking crimes these days are fucking thought crimes. And somehow those who commit the thought crimes are Nazis. Doesn't make any sense. The reality is that it's usually the Nazis pursuing the people who have the thought crimes, who then label the people they're chasing as the Nazis. It's ridiculous, and I realise in this clown world, in this honker world, it is ridiculous. change will come. It always comes. There is a cycle. There is a cycle. The cycle takes usually about 80 years. It all depends per country. I think some cases it's 120 years, some it might be more like 200 years. But the cycle, at least for the United States, is about every 80 years, and it's overdue at the moment. And it's one of these things. Hard times make tough men, which work hard, which make easier times, which then make very easy times, which then have entitled people, and then have people lose track of why they're as prosperous as they are, which then run off the rails with political correctness, feminism, and a whole heap of other deviant and self-destructive behaviour that leads to a collapse, that then leads to hard times, that leads to strong men working hard and rebuilding society. We're right at the end of that. We're at the point now, you give it another 5, 10 years, it'll crumble. At least for the United States and most of Europe, excluding Russia. It'll crumble. Although Russia has its own issues. But this is the thing. It's a cycle. And when Generation Z comes to the fore, the people who are now 15, 14, 16, when these people, when it becomes quote unquote their day, it's when she's going to change. It's when the shit will have hit the fan and we'll move on up ahead. There'll be a lot of hard times, a lot of censorship, a lot of, wrong think crimes and all the other fucking bullshit that is already in fact playing out. But realise that it's just a process, and if you can just vacate the place for a few years, you'll miss the brunt of it. You might be starting to cop the brunt of it and needing to leave. This is advice for those people. This is not for criminals on the run, but as I said before, these days, fucking everyone's a criminal for bloody anything. So, that's sort of the genesis of all this. And I frankly, it's a circus. It's a circus. Those of us who know it can see it's going to collapse. Those of us who, those people who are pushing it, think that they're somehow moving ahead into better territory. Much as I'm sure many of the SS thought they were moving forward into better territory. And everything needs an equilibrium, and politics is absolutely no exception to it. You go too far right, there's a kickback from the left, as there was with the Vietnam War protests. You go too far left, there's a kickback from the alt-right that you're seeing. And as time gets, as time goes on further and things get pushed harder, the kickback's going to be so hard that the whole lot of that fucking clan world shit will collapse. And there might be outbreaks of violence, there might be some sort of civil war in one place or another, At that point you might want to live off grid. At that point you might fucking need to. At that point you might need to disappear from where you are. Anyway, that's sort of what's behind a lot of this stuff, because I realise that, maybe not here in Australia, but in other parts of the world, things are getting a bit dodgy.